Welcome to CXO-Talk. This is episode number 76. I'm Michael Krigsman, and I'm here with my, I lie in bed at night thinking of, this is really true, I lie in bed at night thinking of superlatives about Vala Afshar, my co-host. Vala, how are you?
I'm doing well.
And Vala,
I was frightened where you were going to go with that story.
This could go anywhere, but I think we need to shake hands.
Great seeing
you. Vala, I keep wondering, like, what's the point of shaking hands? Because we don't have like a fist bump cam or a handshaking cam.
Maybe CXO-Talk can invest in a fist bump cam.
I think we need a fist bump cam. But we're here with a really wonderful guest today, Heidi Roizen, who is, I was going to say you're an iconic entrepreneur and investor. But I'm
Thank you. That's better than calling me a pioneer.
I'm sure you've been called a pioneer.
Super old when people say a pioneer.
Well, let's say iconic entrepreneur and investor Heidi Roizen. Heidi, how are you?
I'm good. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
Heidi, would you kindly share with us a little bit about your background and your work?
Sure. Well, I'm a venture capitalist and with DFJ. I teach at Stanford, and I am a long-time recovering entrepreneur. I don't think you ever get over it exactly, but born and raised here in Silicon Valley, went to Stanford undergrad, went to Stanford Business School, started a company with my brother right out of business school, back when you didn't do that, back when that was the dumbest thing you could possibly do, and ran that actually for 14 years. So have lots of war stories from that time. Sold it, went to Apple. I spent a year at Apple as the VP of Worldwide Developer Relations. That was a time in Apple's history that was, well, I used to joke, I didn't need to watch psychodramas on television. I could just go to work every day. So fascinating time. I learned a lot, really interesting, and I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Apple fan and still, spend tons of money on Apple products. Left that in '97, joined the world of venture. So that's kind of, and been on the dark side ever since, I guess. So
you're an operating partner, which means you actually do stuff, I'm assuming.
I do stuff here, yeah. I actually do stuff.
We love VCs, but tell us what it is.
I love that. You actually
I ordered these cups. I did that. See? DFJ Cafe, that was my idea. So there we go. I'm the cup innovator here at DFJ.
Cup innovator. So tell us about the things that you do.
Well, I have a really fun job here. I was a managing director at a different fund for 8 years, so I was one of the people on the front lines of the deals, and now I'm kind of on the back lines of the deals here, which is really great. I manage the younger deal team, so the analysts and associates who are out there on the front lines, going to events, meeting startups, hanging out in Soma, right? And we meet every week and we figure out sort of, what we should be doing, where we should be, how are they working with the more senior partners. I do sit on the, I am a partner, so I do sit in on the partner meetings and the deal teams and that sort of thing. So some of my day is spent evaluating entrepreneurs, but I am not leading deals here myself. I'm sort of more I'm the extra pair of eyes on a deal to look at it and give advice. I worry about things like the DFJ brand. I worry about our marketing, our events, our relationship with our limited partners, whether the website's there or not. I also run a group called DFJ Services, which is a small team, but we try to help our portfolio companies with PR, talent, hiring, business development, all that kind of stuff. So I just try to make, in a way, I try to make entrepreneurs happy that they took DFJ's money through the things that we can help them do once they've already taken our money. And I help other people find those entrepreneurs the ones we want to invest in the first place.
So in terms of, working with young entrepreneurs and making them feel happy and I know you teach at Stanford Business, can you talk to us a little bit about tenets of a happy life or a happy career and how you can achieve fulfillment as an entrepreneur?
Well, there's an easy question for you, and I'm just going to correct you. I actually teach in the engineering school at Stanford, not in the business school. Okay. Although I'm a graduate of the business school. I love the business school. I go there, but I love the engineers. I love to get them when they're raw, and and try to help them understand the world of entrepreneurship. So, it's a super interesting question, and we could go on and on forever about it, but I think the core of being an entrepreneur is to be excited and passionate about what you're doing. I think people who want to be entrepreneurs because they think it's a cool lifestyle, or they think they're going to get rich, or they think it helps them, pick up dates at the bars in, South of Market. I think those are really dumb ideas. Entrepreneurship is really hard, and for most people it takes a really long time. And you don't exactly have a super balanced life while you're doing it. And so if you're going to do it, this is an extreme sport, and if you're going to do it, you better love what you're doing, you better love the people you're working with, and you better understand that there's a high chance you're going to fail, and so you better, it's that interesting balance. I was going to say be at peace with failure, which sounds contradictory. You have to do everything you can to try to not fail, but if you fail, you need to learn from what you just did, pick up and move on, and not let it keep you down. Because if you stay down after you fail, you're going to stay down. And most successful entrepreneurs I know have had failures. They're you don't want to say you're proud of your failures. It's not so much about look at what a great shitty job I did doing something. It's more about I did this and it didn't work, and here's what I learned from it. I don't know any successful entrepreneur that doesn't have at least a handful of stories about the things they did that went horribly wrong.
But there is this image of this popular culture image of entrepreneur as hero today, and you must run into that when you meet some entrepreneurs, I would imagine.
Well, hero is an interesting term. I think every entrepreneur believes they're the hero of something, right? Every entrepreneur is trying to solve a problem. Hopefully, you're trying to solve a problem people have. Sometimes you're trying to solve a problem people don't know they have yet, which is some of the even more interesting deals, right? Who knew we needed tablets before there were tablets and things like that. But entrepreneurs come in all different shapes and sizes. They come in different ethnicities. They come in different age demographics. They come in different genders. So far, they're all human species, but never want to rule out anything else. So I think it just takes all kinds, and there isn't a I refer to as sent from central casting, right? There isn't necessarily an entrepreneur that's sent from central casting. There is a spec, and there's some argument whether that spec is, should you confine yourself to only, people who have engineering masters from Stanford? Well, I think you're really limiting the world if you do that. On the other hand, there certainly has been a track record of success from people like that. So I don't know. I think entrepreneurs and heroes come in all shapes and sizes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about maintaining a right relationship between a VC and an entrepreneur?
Sure. You mean once the investment is made, before the investment is made?
Maybe how about before the investment is made?
I was going to say, which part of the romantic cycle would you care to have information?
I'm actually interested in both, but yeah.
I think the thing about it is, and anyone who reads I write a blog post, which I know you guys know, and I am super about relationships, right? I'm kind of all about relationships. And so to me, the venture capitalist entrepreneur is a relationship. It is not a transaction. I think the mistake entrepreneurs make when they go pitch VCs, when they first meet a VC, is it's like you think the VC is a bank, right? In fact, I want to write a blog post about this. I'll try it out on you guys. It's like when I was an entrepreneur, I thought VCs are like banks. They have an infinite amount of money. I go pitch them, and if I don't screw up, they will give me their money and then go away and leave me alone.
But isn't that why you're so popular, you as the class of VCs? Because you're like banks, and if entrepreneurs come pitch you, you're going to just give them money.
Yes, of course I'm going to give them money. No, that's the problem. And once I became a VC, I understand that as a VC, it is actually a limited amount of capital. It sounds like a lot of money. Like our current fund, we have $325 million. To most entrepreneurs, that sounds like a heck of a lot of money. But we're going to invest that across, let's call it 35 companies, so 30-something. So you have less than 10 million total to put in per company. We're going to want to be stage diversified, sector diversified, and time diversified. And each partner believes, whether you believe it as the entrepreneur or not, that we are going to come in and help you and add value, and we have to pay attention to the deal, right? We have to We have to be on the board. We have to help you grow the company. That's our job, whether sometimes people do it well and sometimes people don't do it well. But so each venture capitalist is going to do 1 or 2 deals a year. So if you really think of it from the perspective of, if you think about it from the venture capitalist mind and you think, I'm going to do 1 or 2 deals a year, but I'm going to meet with a couple hundred. And you're sitting there going, are you the 1 of 2 people I'm going to tie myself to for the next 7 years or whatever it takes to get liquidity in a normal market? That's a very different thing from going to a bank and applying for a loan. So, you know, my comment to entrepreneurs is, look, 99% of the time, your meeting with a venture capitalist is not going to result in money coming to you. Now, I'm talking about traditional venture. I'm not necessarily talking about, you know, 500 startups or YC. There's other great models, and I don't know what their admit rate or hit rate is, but a place like DFJ, 99 out of 100 meetings are going to result in a no. So that is a really dumb waste of time for an entrepreneur, unless what you're really here to do is build a relationship, right? And you know, what does that mean? Well, why do you need VCs in your life? Well, you know, I can give you one good reason, is if you're raising money, you're going to raise money lots of times. We're going to continue to invest money, and maybe if we don't give it to you this time, we might give it to you next time. The other reason is because we look at pitches all day. It's kind of what we do. So if you can get a VC to agree to give you feedback, and even if you come in and say, hey, look, I want to pitch you. Right after this, I have a meeting with an entrepreneur. He's not raising money right now. He said, I want to come in and pitch you. He's a repeat entrepreneur, so I have, you know, it's not just, you know, operators standing by. We can do this for everybody, but, you know, it's an entrepreneur I believe in. I think the deal's too early for us. He says, I want to come and pitch you, and I want to tell you, I want you to tell me, like, where in the pitch do you get lost? Where do you not like what I'm saying? What turns you off? What turns you on? Because he's going to take that information and he's going to keep honing not only his pitch, but presumably it isn't just about the pitch, it's about the business, right? He's going to take whatever knowledge I have in my head about that and apply it, hopefully, to his. And we're going to build a relationship. I'm going to think about, how does he think? How does he respond? How do we communicate around those things? And now in this case, I know this entrepreneur quite well, but in other cases, I may meet an entrepreneur when it's way too early to do the deal relative to where DFJ invests, but I want to see if they say they're going to do something in the next 30 days, do they do it? You know, if they say this is the metric they're aiming for, do they hit that metric? If I offer to make an introduction and they get excited about it, do they follow through? You know, these are the things you learn, and to me, those sorts of things help inform whether this is a person that you believe is going to get over the finish line and you believe you want to back or not.
So for you, the business idea is a component of that investment decision, but fundamentally you're looking at the quality of the person, and is this person reliable and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is I'd much rather have an A person with a B plus idea than a B person with an A idea. And, you know, you struggle with this all the time because the reality of it is I'm not going to run your company. You're going to run your company. And you have to be kick-ass to run your company. And you have to be smart and aggressive, and you have to be a good leader, and you have to be passionate, and you have to get people to come along with you. You have to be able to make decisions. You have to be able sometimes to pivot, often to pivot, you know, get the data, say, uh-oh, we were going here, and the market is now telling us to go here. We need to go here. What do we need to do to go here? How much money do we need? I mean, again, different entrepreneurs have different skill sets, and they need to recruit around them, their partners and team members, to fill in for that. But at the end of the day, most entrepreneurs I know are pretty dynamic people with a lot of cycles, and those are the kind of people you want to back, because the reality is if you take an average player, even if it's a great idea, the problem with today is there are, you know, with the lowering costs of what it takes to start a company and the increased amount of capital and services and support available, if you have a great idea about something, probably 100 other people have that same great idea. And that's the scary part. People think that the idea is the thing worth protecting. And I actually think more often than not, it's around the team and the execution is what determines who's going to win and who's not. And again, if you go look at the successes out there, you go look at the biggest companies in tech that we can all point at, for every one of them, there was something that looked a lot like it that came out before it. and it just wasn't as successful.
Sure. Do entrepreneurs use social media to connect with you and your firm? And if so, is it successful?
Sort of. I mean, interestingly, for example, I've met, we haven't done a deal yet from someone I've met through response to blogging, but I've taken 5 or 6 meetings from people who I've gotten to know because they've responded to my blog and said, hey, I thought this was interesting, and you know, I like that you said this or that, or you said something about, you know, and in fact, in particular, one of the things I'm super happy about is some of those have been women women have great, you know, companies, and by the way, these are you know, these are women who are, you know, super qualified. They've actually raised money. You know, these are people that I'm really happy to know that I may have not known otherwise, but because they read my blog and they resonated with some things they said, they reached out to me. And so I'm finding that's the case. I've certainly had some conversations on Twitter with people. I've certainly, you know, I think one of the things that's great for me is when I get to meet someone, if they blog, if they have a presence on Twitter, I can sort of get to know them through that as well. And you know, people ask me, you know, why do you blog? Well, one of the reasons I blog is I've got some information I want to share. I hope it's useful. After teaching at Stanford 5 years, I find the same topics come up over and over again. And I thought, well, if I put it out there in a blog, other people can benefit from that or not. But the other reason is I think that it lets people know who I am. And I do think that going back to your thing about the VC entrepreneur relationship is, it's a relationship. We're going to be together for 7 years or whatever time it takes. I'm, as a VC, going to be judged by your results, by who did I pick and how did that turn out. So we really need to know each other. So for example, to me, ethics are really important. And I say that in my blog post. Ethics are really important. And so I am hopeful that by kind of putting myself out there,
sure,
I'm telling entrepreneurs, hey, if you're one of those people who like makes up numbers, I'm probably not the right VC for you. There's plenty of other VCs.
Go ahead.
We have a question from Twitter. And Vala, after 76 shows, you would think you and I would like be a little bit less polite with each other. So if you want to say something and I'm talking, just do it.
I thought you meant polite with me.
Yeah, I try to be polite with you, Michael.
Just do it. But
we do have a question from Twitter.
But we do have a question from
sure,
Twitter. That was just like sort of an internal public service.
Yes, I'm sure I interrupt you definitely next time.
Okay, so we have a question from Twitter, and this is from Frank Scavo, who is one of really the best enterprise software analysts. And he asks, Heidi, you must get a lot of startups that want to pitch you. How do you decide which ones to take time with and talk to?
So that's a great question. So, you know, they come in from all places. And first of all, the referral source is important. You know, when Elon Musk sends us a deal, we pretty much tend to take the meeting. You know, I mean, we're big investors in SpaceX, Tesla. You know, we're a big investor in Box. So when Aaron is an angel investor, he says, I think you should look at this. We're pretty much going to look at those. We get a lot, you know, we also get deals that come in that we don't necessarily know people, and we've taken those meetings. I think that, you know, again, back to that thing of entrepreneurs think of VCs as banks and every deal is, you know, we just apply for the loan, either you get it or don't. But here we have certain theses around some markets that we think are ready for disruption, and you know, one of them, for example, we've been doing some healthcare IT investing because we believe in that space. When a deal comes in, sometimes it goes to a specific partner because there's a prior relationship, and if it's in that partner's sector, they look at it and they make their own independent decision. Sometimes a deal comes in and it doesn't go to the right partner, or it comes to me, and think of me a little bit as a deal traffic cop, right? I work with the more junior team, and we might look at the incoming deals, and we sort of have a clearinghouse place where we have one person who's in charge of everything that comes in that wasn't specifically owned by a partner, to take a look, understand where it's coming from, read the, you know, who's the entrepreneur, take a look, and kind of say, hey, is this sector, space, stage, the kind of thing we might look at? And then everybody is kind of on their own about who takes the meeting. Sometimes we bring them up at Monday partner meetings and say, hey, here's one that came in, sounds interesting. It sounds like a pretty random process, but you know, you have to remember we have 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 people on the venture deal team, and we probably get, let's call it 100 deals a week that come in that aren't specifically directed to somebody.
Wow.
And so really, you know, you look at this and you make decisions and you kick it around, and we've tried more formal processes, but I don't think it really makes sense for us. That's kind of the process we use, and it, you know, again, so much of it is understanding where this person is coming from, what was their background, where did they work, how did they come up with the idea. There's so much more than just the send me the one pager and I'll make a decision. Now, of course, a lot of the deals that come in that are sort of, you know, I'll call it unwashed, that come in and it's occupant. Hi, I don't know you, I don't know anybody there, but here's my pitch. They're just not going to be a fit because they're going to be outside the sectors, and we try to be explicit on our website about, you know, here are the sectors we do, although DFJ is pretty broad, right? So we do a fair bit, but like we're not going to do a new soft ice cream vending machine. I mean, now I say that, and watch, we'll do one. But you know, there are certain geographies we don't cover. You know, we don't cover really early stage outside the U.S. We have sister funds, and once in a while I refer someone somewhere else, but we've just found that we can't, when it's, you know, a guy, a girl, a dog, and a laptop, and they're sitting in Lithuania, we can't really do that, right? So there's a lot that we can rule out fairly quickly, but we take a lot of meetings. I mean, that's the other thing. We take a lot of meetings.
You know, where do you like to invest? I mean, you know, you gave us a sense of geography and the stage, but, you know, we're here today, you know, Michael and I we were at 3 conferences, and things like Internet of Things and wearables and apps and social and mobile and cloud and big data, all these, you know, I think last year big data was the buzzword. This year it's Internet of Things. But is there a particular area that fits your investment thesis sweet spot?
Well, remember me, I'm in the background, so I'm actually kind of traffic copying for the whole team. But, you know, if you look at some of the more recent successes that DFJ has had, Tesla, Box, which we were in super early, Solar City, SpaceX, a lot of Elon companies. Thank you, Elon. We love you. Planet Labs. I mean, I think that, for example, you know, you'll see a theme around a lot of those is very disruptive and disruptive in the space industry. Sure. And that is a space that Steve Jurvetson got excited about very early, right? You know, if you look at Box, where we were the first investors, that's a space, enterprise SaaS, that Josh got excited about very early. So I think the thing is, you know, when you feel like I'll give you an example. Food delivery. We don't have a food delivery deal. And I sometimes, and you know what, here's the thing about food. Big market. Everyone eats like a couple times a day. I mean, it's just amazing, right? And we've looked at food deals, but we're just not, you know, it's like, okay, now everyone has their food deal. And some of those are going to be successful. But that may be a category where we say, okay, you know, now maybe food creation, maybe artificial labs that meet without animals involved, maybe that's where we need to go if we're interested in food. So we like to think that we live out a little bit on the crazy edge of what people are doing, but not with everything. You know, again, you know, obviously there are other investments we make. You know, an investment like another recent investment of ours, Doximity. You know, I mean, I think it's not a business that you look at and go, oh, those people are crazy, right? I mean, it's a business where we look at it and say, hey, this is a rational, reasonable business. It's the next step in, you know, what happens when people want to socially network around a particular profession and provide services, and it, you know, it makes sense. So, kind of, you know, what gets us excited? I think what gets us excited is that revolutionary stuff where you're like, this person might be crazy, or this might really work, and if it works, it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. That's the stuff. I mean, honestly, that's stuff we really get excited about.
So you're investing in the person or the team before the idea. Is that a fair assessment? I mean. As long as they have a reputation.
I mean, it is both. I mean, we don't really invest in people who walk in and say, "Hi, I'm brilliant. Back me in whatever I want to do." You know, we don't do that.
Sure.
But I would say that if you were a fly on the wall in our partner meetings, the discussion of the space is the discussion of the person is as long or longer than the discussion of the space. Because by the time we take the meeting, the space is the space. I mean, the interesting thing about a lot of spaces is you can analyze them. You can see, are they competitive or not? What's the total available market? What does a business model in that space look like? I mean, you can model out, and you're not always right, but you can model out different industries and especially stage, right? If you're already talking to a company that's doing some revenue, you know, especially our growth fund, right? We have our sister fund, DFJ Growth. You know, they're investing in companies where there's more stuff to due diligence because they have customers and they have revenue, and you know, then it's a lot more math. For us, it's so much about the person, and sometimes we know people,
right,
and we'll invest in them again because we know them, we've worked with them, and we've, you know, and by the way, sometimes we invest in people that we didn't necessarily make money with, because you can have a great company and be a great person, and sometimes you can still fail. So, you know, on the other hand, we love to invest in people we've made money with before, but, you know, getting to know that person is really important. And you don't know everyone you're going to invest in, so then it's always using our network to figure out what more can we learn about these folks. But I would definitely say it's ultimately the decision is, more often than not, the decision falls on the ultimate determination of the person and not so much about space. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, like, in the last year, there's only one time where, like, maybe a couple times where we love the person and we're like, yeah, but we just don't love this space, you know? So it's not our thing.
You know, you mentioned Steve Jurvetson. I have to say, I'm a photographer, and he is such an awesome photographer.
He is, isn't he?
So talented.
He's really good. He loves doing it. He's prolific. He's hilarious about it too. I mean, you know, he'll come in and he'll take pictures of, like, entrepreneurs, and it's kind of funny. He's like, takes pictures of them, and he's like, "Is this okay?" Because, you know, he has to make sure sometimes we're seeing things that are not, you know, hardware things that aren't publicly knowledge, you know, publicly available. He's great.
Well, I have a question, again, about the relationship between the entrepreneur and the VC. It seems that in many companies there can end up being a contentious relationship, especially around negotiations, where from the entrepreneur point of view, it seems like the VCs are just doing everything in their power to shift the balance of power to the VC and to squeeze shift the balance of power, yes, to the VC, and to squeeze the entrepreneur to the maximum extent possible. And that's a cliche, but I talk with entrepreneurs and that's how they see it. So what about that dimension?
Well, I mean, there's bad behavior all over, and there's bad behavior in VC land, and there's always multiple perspectives on things, right? And so I would say in general, and again, speaking as a person who was an entrepreneur, I raised 2 rounds of venture, actually one of which was from DFJ, the other from Hummer Winblad. Fantastic, you know, Ann Winblad is fantastic venture capitalist, one of my closest friends. So, you know, but I was an investment of hers before I became her closest friend. So, you know, lots of history on both sides of this fence. And what I would say is that it's a two-way street, and that's why you have to get to know the venture capitalists, and you have to decide, are these people who have a reputation for squeezing when the chips are down, or for trying to eke that last little percentage out? You know, what is in it for them? Do you understand, like, where are they in their fund cycle? Where is that partner in the hierarchy? What are they trying to prove? You know, if you happen to, this is stuff that's totally outside of the entrepreneur's control. But, like, if you're in a fund and one of the other deals in the fund is going to return the fund or more, and that partner was the one who also found that, they're not going to worry as much about your deal. If you're in a fund that didn't return capital and you're the deal that looks like it might be promising or not, that partner is going to care a lot about you. So this is one thing I tell all entrepreneurs. There's a fantastic book by Brad Feld and Jason Mendelson called Venture Deals, How to Be Smarter Than Your Lawyer or Venture Capitalist. It's Venture Deals. It's on Amazon. Every entrepreneur who's going to raise money from venture capitalists should read that book. Because if you don't understand how the venture business works, you're not going to understand those dynamics. So point one is that. Point one is understand the business and understand the person you're doing business with to the extent you can. The second thing is terms are really important. And entrepreneurs, somebody said this to me once, actually a VC said this to me once when he presented a term sheet that I ultimately turned down. He said, the problem with raising money is valuation is the grade at the top of the paper, right? And that's the thing too, when you go to a cocktail party, in Silicon Valley, you go to a cocktail party, oh, I raised it at 20 pre, oh, I raised it at 30 pre, oh, we got the, you know, people talk about that. The problem with that is terms are, in how deals are going to sort out, terms are way more important, right? And I give you the classic example. And I'm going to use an extreme case, but I think this is a good way to put it.
Sure.
Let's say you have a company and you want to raise $3 million. And I say, okay, I'll give you $3 million and I want a third of the company for that. Because you're, you know, startup, in my book, that's a reasonable valuation. And you say, no, my company's already worth $25 million. All right, well, I'll give you my $3 million. But I want liquidity preference, participating preferred, and I want a 3x on my money, right? If you think your company is so damn valuable, I'll give you the $3 million, but if you sell the company, I want a 3x. Well, what does that mean? What that means is you're going to owe me $9 million if you sell your company, right? My money comes off the top. That's why we call it preferred. It's got a preference over common. So now you run your company for a while. It goes okay, it doesn't go super well, it goes okay, didn't work out, it's a year later, and Google comes along and they say, we'll buy your company for $10 million. If you had taken my money, a third of the company, for $3 million, right, you would be getting $6-ish million, and I'd be getting, you know, $3-ish million back, right? If it's simple, non-participant, you know, again, I'm just extreme examples. Simple terms, I own a third of the company, I get a third of the money. Under the other terms, with the preference structure, because you wanted to tell your friends that you raised money at $20 million valuation, when you sell that company for $10 million, I get $9 million and you get $1 million. And the problem here is, some deals explode into nothing and nobody, who cares, right? Some deals become rocket ships to the moon and that's super awesome and you're going to be rich. But most deals settle in the middle. Most deals are sold for small amounts of money. And small amounts of money to an entrepreneur can be meaningfully life-changing if you didn't screw yourself up by taking too much money and wasting it, or by screwing up your cap table and by having these screwy preferences. So, but you know, no entrepreneur wants to believe that there's going to be this sort of mediocre outcome. They all want to believe there's going to be these, you know, really dramatic outcomes. So that I think a lot of the behavior happens when you set up. My feeling is the more you closely align the investor and the entrepreneur to want the same outcomes, the less you're going to have this problem of ending up in situations where you don't want the same outcome. And the worst is if you pile preferences on top of preferences, right? And so, you know, you raise some money and then you want another up valuation and the VC says, I'm not taking it unless it's way up, and then the new guy comes in and he goes, yeah, but I'm going to give you money, but I want even more senior. And before you know it, you've got, we call it an overhang, right? You're the entrepreneur and you're sitting there and you're going, I got to sell this company for $50 million before I even see a dime, right? Because I layered on these preference stacks. And, you know, again, you see this over and over and over again. So I would just encourage entrepreneurs to really look at this stuff, and don't go to your uncle who's a divorce attorney to negotiate your term sheet. You know, go to, you know, Fenwick, Wilson, Cooley, you know, I mean, I could, you know, there's Gunderson, there's, you know, we work with them all, right? Go to somebody who does this for a living, because this stuff is really super important.
I want to shift conversation a little bit back to the topic of relationships, because I think it's important for the entrepreneurs who are watching our show to understand, you know, how they can establish relationships with VCs. And you've written about building relationships based on giving, and you've also written about importance of integrity. Can you talk a little bit about integrity and the importance of how you can establish meaningful relationships?
Well, I think to me, integrity is the core of a lot of things in life. It's, you know, how you go to sleep at night, and it's, you know, everybody has their own lines about what do they do and what do they not do. And in fact, one of the funnest conversations we have in my class is I throw out scenarios that entrepreneurs have done, and I say, is this integrity or not? You know, for example, I'll use an example that, you know, is like, there's lying, and then there's sort of lying, and then there's sort of you didn't say anything, but you know, varying degrees of this, right? So, for example, if you're an entrepreneur and you're doing your pitch and your screen is up, but you forget to close your email, but actually maybe you left it open on purpose, and all of a sudden there's a thing up there, and it looks like Mark Zuckerberg's emailing you. I've seen people do that, right? I've seen them spoof emails. I've seen people write on a whiteboard like you know, pros and cons, Kleiner, Sequoia, DFJ, and then, you know, we come in to take a meeting, and then they're like, oh my God, and they go to erase the whiteboard, right? You know,
silly stuff, transparently silly stuff.
It's kind of silly stuff, but you know, sometimes people, you know, the thing about a lot of that stuff is the truth will come out, and so. Don't tell us you have customers that you don't really have. Don't tell us you have investors that you don't really have. Don't tell us someone's signed on to come on full-time if they haven't. Don't tell us you have an advisor and then we call them and they go, who? You know, I mean, a lot of that stuff, I think that's just bad behavior. It's bad ethical behavior. On the other hand, I think that being an entrepreneur, you have a lot of unknowns, right? And I think when an entrepreneur comes in, they say, we're going to do $100,000 in revenue next quarter, and I say, how? And they go, well, you know, here's the stuff we know is going to happen. Here's the stuff we don't know is going to happen. And then at the end of the quarter, if I come in and I go, well, hey, what happened? They go, well, you know what? Here's what happened to what we said. This one worked, this one worked, this one totally blew up. We learned our lesson, right?
Right.
That's okay. It's the Wild West. I mean, we don't expect everything to be perfect, but we don't want people to tell us a deal's in the bag when a deal's not in the bag, right? I mean, I think it's that kind of stuff.
So you want very, very straightforward kind of conversation without either too much optimism, too much negative, or whitewashing.
Well, you know what? Here's the problem is entrepreneurs are always super optimistic. If they weren't, they wouldn't be entrepreneurs. And so I think the thing I tell entrepreneurs is, look, you have a big vision. And in fact, I tell entrepreneurs this a lot of times. You look at their plans, and they always overestimate the early years, right? They always want to show you how well they're going to do and how profitable they're going to be, how quickly, and it almost never works. And what I tell entrepreneurs is actually, we don't care what happens in the first year. We care that you make it to year 5. We care about the exit. We care about surviving to the exit and the size of the exit and the dilution we have to take along the way to fuel to that exit. But we actually don't overpromise in your early months, because the reality is usually not everything falls in your direction. And I'd much rather have someone come in and say, we're not sure we can make revenue for the first 6 months. We're going to try, but let's not count on that, because we may learn something along the way that allows us to create a better product, but it means we're not going to make that revenue in the beginning. So it's that fine line. You have to be optimistic. You have to be able to paint a bright future. You have to be a visionary, but you have to be pragmatic and realistic about what's really going to happen. And the other thing is, I think you have to know what elements drive your business model, right? There are certain elements, if you get them wrong by half or double or whatever, it's okay. The business will still work. There are other things that if you get them wrong by half or double, if they're wrong in the wrong direction, you're toast, right? Your business doesn't work. Sure. Being an entrepreneur who understands the connection from a business perspective on all of those elements, that's really important, right? Even if you don't know the answer. If you don't know the answer, but you know the assumptions and the effect the assumptions have, then as you start actually playing the game, we can assess against the data that's actually coming in and figure out where to turn the dials.
So you've written about, you said, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing, life is really, really random, and expect things to be messy.
Yep.
And as you're evaluating a company or an entrepreneur, are you not intimidated by messiness?
God, if we didn't like messy, we'd never make an investment.
Okay.
There's no such thing as an unmessy investment. It's just like when you go out to buy a house. there's no such thing as a perfect house, right? Every house has its issue. Every startup has its issue. Every person. There's no such thing as a perfect hire. There's no such thing as a perfect spouse. Is there? I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I'm divorced, so I can say that.
I plead the fifth. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So, I think this is the thing of, where do you want your mess? And, like, I will take mess. Like, I don't want to take integrity mess. To me, someone I can't trust is someone I don't want to work with. And I will tell you right now, well, there are some people who don't have a lot of integrity who've made a lot of money, right? I can say the same thing about, can we swear? I forget.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. We used to have this rule at my company. It was called don't do business with assholes. And you know what? There are some people who are real assholes who've made a lot of money and who are great entrepreneurs. And my own opinion is life's too short for me to work with those people. I just don't like working with people who are mean and nasty and who raise their voice and throw things at you and hang up the phone or, well, they don't, hang up, whatever, throw their iPhone at you, whatever they do. I've dealt with some people like that before, and I'm just like, oh, life's too short. I like to work with people that I actually would like to hang out with too. And that doesn't mean that everyone has to be like me or look like me or act like me or whatever. And it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's an extrovert who wants to go, I don't know, go on a walk with me or go hang out at a pub or something. I'm not saying that. But at the end of the day, I don't really like to work with people that I don't like. And so those are the decisions we all have to make. Just like some entrepreneurs may not pick working with me, right? I have my style and I have my skills and I have my blank spots where I'm not as skilled. And an entrepreneur might say, well, she's okay, but I'd really rather work with that person over there because I just feel like I'm going to get more out of that person or whatever. That's okay.
So we have literally 3 minutes left. So let's do some very quick questions with very short answers. Okay?
Ready.
So in 30 seconds, top advice for an entrepreneur to recognize whether the VC is an asshole or not, or a good guy or a good person, good woman, in 30 seconds.
Ask around.
Ask around. Okay.
Ask around and judge by how they treat you.
It
never gets better, it only gets worse.
Okay.
Would you give a different advice to a female entrepreneur looking to invest versus a male? And if so, what would it be?
In 30 seconds.
No, I give the same advice.
Okay. How do you create the right culture? I know you feel culture is important. How do you create a culture?
Culture is action. It's about your actions. It's not about what you write on the wall. It's not about your mission statement. It's your behavior. It's how you lead. It's the bullshit you call. There's really nothing different between culture and leadership and parenting. They're kind of all the same.
Culture, leadership, and parenting. Okay, we're going to have to unpack that one later and think about it.
Any particular technology really excites you as you look at the landscape today?
Sorry?
Any particular technology really excites you in terms of potential for growth?
Too many to talk about in this one, and if they really excite me and they're that new, I'm not telling my competition.
Oh. How can somebody become a VC?
I think that look, there are some people who are great financial analytical wizards, and they become VCs, and they come up through the ranks. But they may do management consulting, they may be iBankers, junior. They may be work for private equity, and they work their way up through the ranks. And then there's other people like me who spend a lot of time trying and failing and sometimes succeeding, being an operating person. Venture's a really small business, and I would say that just like we tend to invest in people we know, we also tend to hire people we know. So if you want to be a venture capitalist, you probably ought to go get to know some venture capitalists.
Comes back to relationship.
Relationship.
Can you recommend a good book? And it doesn't have to be business related.
Aside from the one that you recommended earlier.
Oh gosh!
Aside from Brad Fell's book.
Or a blog, or other than yours. Where do you go every day?
Actually, I think Reid Hoffman's books are really good. I also think the book Give and Take about relationships is a really good book. I think Adam Grant. Try those.
Okay. Well, it's 3:44, and I believe we are done. This could go on. We could go on for a long time.
This was fun.
Yes.
Great insight.
We have been talking with truly the truly awesome Heidi Roizen, who is an investor and entrepreneur. And Heidi, thank you so much for coming to talk with us today.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
And I hope you'll come back another time.
I'd love to. I'm
Michael Krigsman with my co-host Vala Afshar. And since we have, how about if we do like a high five so people can hear it? No. We're going to get this down one day. Thank you so much. This has been episode number 76 of CXO-Talk, and we'll see you next time. There's no show next week because of the Labor Day holiday. So see you after the next time. Bye-bye.